escalating tensions in Tehran. The U.S. is looking to create a coalition of allies to patrol waters around Iran and Yemen. It comes amid a new bipartisan alliance to block President Trump from going to war with Iran without congressional approval. Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz teaming up with Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna to introduce this bill following President Trump's comments. He does have the power to strike Iran without an okay from Congress. Congressman Gaetz defending the amendment yesterday. Watch.
Our amendment stands against the proposition of endless wars. The Khanna-Gaetz legislation would require any president to come back to the Congress after 60 days, and particularly that would apply in the conflict that we could potentially see with Iran. I don't believe that a 2001 authorization to use military force is applicable in the year 2019 or beyond. I think we need to update the conditions and terms where we would send America's bravest patriots into battle, and I think we can do that here.
And joining me right now is the Florida Congressman himself, a member of both the House Judiciary and Armed Services Committees, Matt Gaetz. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you.
Does that thinking, that sentiment also hold true if Iran attacks the United States?
No,
can the United States just go back at Iran if it attacks it without going to Congress? Is my question.
Of course, even if we saw Iran preparing an attack, we would maintain first strike capabilities.
Right.
Under the current War Powers Act, the president can maintain a conflict for 60 days. Our issue is that no president should be able to keep our country in war for months or years without ever coming back to the Congress. That's just not what the Constitution says.
Yeah, I understand that. So as a member of the Armed Services Committee, how serious is this threat from Iran, Congressman?
It's very serious. Iran engages in malign influence all over the globe. We see that they continue to enrich uranium. It's noteworthy that they're nowhere near weapons-grade uranium in that enrichment process now. But if Iran were to break to the bomb, obviously we would have to build an international coalition to resist that outcome. As we sit today, I don't believe that it's the obligation of the United States to avenge Emirati or Qatarese oil or a robot with blood. And that's why I don't think that the war hawk calls for conflict at this moment are well-founded. I think the president's strategy has worked very effectively with Iran. I think he's pulled us back from the brink of war, and hopefully now we're building a stronger international coalition. We see the Brits more engaged, seizing that Iranian oil that was headed to Syria in the port of Gibraltar, and I think that ultimately we will bring Iran back to the table without bloodshed.
So you think that the Europeans will align with the United States against Iran? Because, you know, with these waivers in place, Europe is still trying to get its oil and gas from Iran, still in business there, not wanting to, you know, shake the boat.
Well, the president's maximum pressure campaign is what has brought us to this moment. I agree with Senator Rubio, Senator Cruz, and Senator Cotton, who have urged the administration not to grant waivers to companies, but to keep that pressure on. I think the fact that you saw Britain seize that Iranian oil that was headed to Syria through Gibraltar shows that there is resolve within Europe. Because, look, this is Europe's problem, too. There's nobody in Europe who wants to see Iran obtain a nuclear weapon, but Iran getting a nuclear weapon is precisely what was going to happen under the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal. It was just going to take a little longer.
So let me ask you about this breaking news hitting the tape this morning. UK Ambassador to the United States, Sir Kim Darroch, has resigned. This follows the leaked emails where he was critical of the Trump administration. This is the cover story of the Financial Times this morning, that yesterday the president tweeted about him, saying this wacky ambassador that the UK foisted upon the United States is not someone we are thrilled with, a very stupid guy. I don't know the ambassador, but have been told he's a pompous fool. Today we see he's actually resigning. What's your reaction to this? And tell me what you think of Kim Darroch.
Yeah, well, it was pretty dumb for the former ambassador to be making those comments about the Trump administration as America is enjoying some of our greatest prosperity and success, certainly in my lifetime. And I think that the fact that we are still working so closely together on Iran and other issues in the world show that the U.S.-United Kingdom relationship is enduring beyond the personality of one ambassador. And I'm sure that when they send someone else to fill that role, that we'll be right back working together as we always do.
Yeah, by the way, it's the cover of the Financial Times this morning on this story after the president's tweets. Let me ask you about digging deeper here. A House panel is voting this week on whether to subpoena a list of current and former Trump administration officials, Congressman, including senior advisor to the president, Jared Kushner, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly. what's happening here? I know you have been knee-deep
It's nuts,
in terms
right?
of... I'm sorry?
I mean, it's totally nuts. I think my Democratic colleagues can't take a hint. They can't take a hint that the country is ready to move on from the Mueller report. The Democrats in Congress view the Mueller report as a screenplay that they're trying to bring to life in the form of a movie by bringing all these people back to sort of reenact their various lines and contributions. But it is preposterous to suggest that a dozen or so Democrats in Congress are going to be able to get more than Robert Mueller got after 22 months, $30 million, dozens of prosecutors and FBI agents, thousands of witness statements. I think that we can all rest assured that there was no criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. Now let's get on to serving the country.
Well, you're on Judiciary. What do you want to ask Robert Mueller when and if he does come down to testify? Because we know that Christopher Steele has been under scrutiny. We know that the investigating of the investigators is in full mode. You've got William Barr looking at it. You've got, John Durham looking at it in terms of what happened early in 2016 and how that cabal of individuals tried to put their finger on the scale to stop Donald Trump. Where is that investigation? Where does it stand today, Congressman?
Well, we see that the Attorney General has put an intense amount of focus on ensuring that this type of corruption never happens again in our country to any other president. When it comes to Mr. Mueller's testimony, I think we've got a lot of questions about bias, about how he assembled his team. I think we also want to know why he flipped the expectation that Americans are innocent until proven guilty. It seemed as though Mr. Mueller thought that people were guilty unless he was able to clear them. And I think we've got a lot of questions about that as well.
Well, Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier, obviously has been scrutinized, reportedly grilled by the Justice Department officials in a 16-hour interview last month. The interview apparently was credible enough to extend the Russia investigation. So where are we on this? Do you think we're going to see accountability here? We know that the FBI was told by the #2 person in Europe that Christopher Steele's information was not credible. And yet they still use that dossier to get a FISA warrant to spy on American citizens because they were part of the Trump campaign, Congressman.
Yeah, we even saw reporting that the British government itself had given information to representatives of the United States indicating that Christopher Steele was not credible, that he was working on false information from Russians, and that he was simply trying to meet an election day deadline with this information, and that it wasn't fully vetted or checked out, and it was largely intended to influence the election. This gets back to Mueller. Why did Robert Mueller not investigate the Russians who were trying to influence the United States election by putting flawed information into this Steele dossier that then resulted in the politicization of our intelligence community? Those are reasonable questions, and I think that we need institutional reform so that we don't allow the intelligence community to be politicized against political adversaries.
When do you think Robert Mueller knew there was no collusion? Because there's this theory out there that he knew that there was no collusion months before he actually announced it, and he just sat on it so that the midterm elections would come and go.
We knew from the beginning. If you look at the text messages and communications between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, 10 months into the investigation, the lovers were texting each other that there's no there there. And in Lisa Page's deposition, she said they were talking about the fact that there lacked any evidence suggesting a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. So there was never evidence that suggested this was the case. And I think largely it was intended to distract from the fact that you had Russia trying to discredit democracy itself by undermining President Trump.
So do you think Robert Mueller is going to be asked that when he testifies in a week?
I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely certain of it.
Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.